with a $5 meal deal with new McValue. You pick a McDouble or a McChicken, then get a small fry, a small drink, and a 4-piece McNuggets. That's a lot of McDonald's for not a lot of money.
Prices and participation may vary. McDouble meal $6 in some markets for a limited time only.
Hey, Mama, you don't have time to be messing around endlessly scrolling to find a caregiver for your child. Let me clue you into my trick to save time and my sanity when finding a sitter. SitterCity.com. SitterCity knows what they're doing. They've been helping busy parents find the perfect sitter for over 20 years. While other sites overwhelm you by throwing hundreds of random profiles your way, SitterCity matches you with caregivers who actually fit your needs. No endless scrolling, no guesswork. I love that all caregivers undergo ID verification. They have background checks, specialized qualifications, and real parent reviews to know if they showed up on time or really know how to handle my sassy toddler. And if I need help, I can talk to a real live human, not a robot, with SitterCity's delightful team. You know, my employer pays for me to get SitterCity completely free as part of my benefits. Yours could too. SitterCity is my go-to for a smarter, simpler way to find reliable, trustworthy care. Don't wait. Go to SitterCity.com/XX and get the help you need.
Behind the Knife, the surgery podcast. Relevant and engaging content designed to help you dominate the day.
Hello and welcome to Behind the Knife. Today we have the next installment of our collaborative series with our partners from ASGBI, and we couldn't be happier to share it with our listeners. As many of you know, this series compares and contrasts various aspects of the world of surgery between the UK and the United States, and you as the listener gets to decide who does it better at the end of the day. I'm Jon Williams, one of the Behind the Knife Fellows, and once again I'm joined by our ASGBI co-hosts Kellie, Bateman, and Wohlgemut. Today's episode is especially timely since the ASGBI annual meeting is coming up very, very soon. So Kellie, would you like to introduce this topic and talk a bit about the upcoming annual meeting?
Of course I would. So in the interest of our upcoming ASGBI International Congress, which is going to be in Edinburgh in May, we thought it'd be fascinating to learn more about what goes on behind the scenes of these conferences and how it's all put together. So we'll be discussing the logistics of planning, how we've decided on the content and that balance between clinical, academic, how we work with industry and integration of that, and particularly the value of attending surgical conferences for both surgeons in practice and surgeons in training and the future going forwards. So to do this episode justice, we'll of course need some experts who have led conferences and designed them before. So Jared, do you care to introduce our UK guest?
Of course. Mr. Damaskos, initially from Greece, came to the UK for his fellowship and is an upper GI and emergency general surgical consultant in Edinburgh with an interest in abdominal wall surgery based in the Royal Infirmary of Edinburgh. He is the current director of scientific program for ASGBI, and he's responsible for organising our main international congress. This year it happens to be in Edinburgh. He also has held numerous other events for surgical societies, including the British Hernia Society. Welcome.
Thank you very much for the invitation.
All right, and for our US-based expert on surgical conferences, we're fortunate to have Dr. Lidor joining us. Dr. Lidor serves as the program chair for the Society for American Gastrointestinal Endoscopic Surgeons, or SAGES for short, which is a wide-reaching US-based international surgical society that encompasses many facets of general and minimally invasive surgery. The SAGES annual meeting was just last month and is a great opportunity for surgeons to convene and share clinical experiences, academic work, and professionally connect. Dr. Lidor initially completed medical school at the New York Medical College and then moved on to George Washington University for general surgery residency training. Following residency, she moved to Baltimore to Johns Hopkins, where she completed her minimally invasive surgery and bariatric surgery fellowship and subsequently stayed on as a faculty surgeon. After some time at Hopkins, during which she held many education leadership roles, both at the medical school and as fellowship director, she moved to the University of Wisconsin to become the chief of minimally invasive and bariatric surgery, a role that she continues to hold today. Dr. Lidor is a prolific foregut surgeon and has been involved with multiple surgical societies, including SAGES. I'm sure it's been a busy year organizing the SAGES annual meeting, and so we're extremely happy that Dr. Lidor is able to join us.
Well, thanks for having me.
So perhaps we can get started with some conference basics. Mr. Damaskos, I wonder if you could start by telling us about what the goals or the purposes of different surgical conferences are, and particularly how they might be tailored to different groups of surgeons within the UK.
Yes, thank you very much, Kelly. I think as far as the United Kingdom goes, there is two main groups of audience we're trying to capture. So we are doing our best to provide as much content as possible for our residents, which is, I would say, our main focus. So try to provide material and make the conference meaningful for their attendance to help them to get CPD points that will enhance their portfolio. But at the same time, we do understand that, also our consultant colleagues need to get the opportunity to meet with other consultants in the meetings and learn about new techniques, learn about how our profession is evolving, and also have the opportunity to make new collaborations and new academic kind of acquaintances. So these are our two main focuses in terms of audience, but also increasingly over the last few years, we have seen more allied health professionals or specialist nurses attending our conferences. So over the years, we have been adjusting our content to enable the participation of this group of professionals as well.
Thank you. And Dr. Lidor, you've obviously got such a vast geographical area to cover as well. How do you decide who your target market's going to be? How do you decide whether to go hybrid or virtual, or do you focus on the in-person events?
Well, yes, we've definitely gone back to all in person. I think obviously during COVID, we were all virtual and then had a hybrid for a year or two. The past couple of years, it's been fully in person. Everything is available online for every participant after the meeting is over. So even if they weren't able to attend, or if there were concurrent sessions going on and they weren't able to get to one session because they were at another session, they're able to get all of the content afterwards. So I think that's a big plus of attending our meeting. I mean, SAGES is a pretty big organization. It has members from foregut surgeons to bariatric surgeons, colorectal surgeons, acute care trauma surgeons, community practice surgeons. I mean, it's a pretty broad-based organization. One of its main focuses, as Dimitrios said, is the residents and fellows, so trainees as well. We have a large number of international participants who come every year. So, the programming is designed to provide content for all of those individuals, which is obviously can be a little daunting when you start out, but I think we do a really good job.
That's great. I love that. Yeah, you encourage the being there and in person for the networking, but it's also available afterwards. I think I've watched a few recordings online in the past. And do you also have smaller societies that might have more regional meetings?
SAGES doesn't have any sub meetings, but there are tremendous number of regional meetings for all the different subspecialties in the United States. I mean, the American College of Surgeons, which is our sort of overarching surgery society, each state has their own regional college meeting. There are regional conferences for all specialties. I mean, the combinations are endless. I wouldn't be able to go through all of them. I think it's nice to get involved in regional meetings because those are your local colleagues and it's nice to see them. But the content there is somewhat limited and the participation is limited. So usually being part of a bigger society like SAGES or some of the other bigger societies, I think is probably most people probably belong to something like that.
Awesome. Well, I appreciate there's a lot of time and energy put into creating and coordinating these international events. Can you both tell us a bit about your respective societies and how much goes into the planning, the logistics, and the organization of the meetings in the upcoming year? So, for example, how do you decide where to host it? How do you decide on a venue? How do you balance the educational and clinical components and, new technology versus a challenging old dogma? How do you design a good conference? I'll start with you, Dr. Damaskos.
That's a very long question, Jared. I'm going to take it from the top. Okay, so how do you decide where to do it? I think that's more of a logistical issue. We are not like the United States, obviously. We are much kind of more condensed as a population and much smaller as a population. But our meeting attracts, a reasonable amount of people compared to the population of our country. So we do look for venues that, one, are easy for our delegates to get to and are easy for our international speakers to get to. Two, venues that can hold the number of expected delegates, which has, been rising over the last few years. Three, venues that are of the available kind of surface to host our exhibition area and our trainee village activities. So that is with regards to where you choose to do it. And also in our kind of thoughts about where to do it, we do try our best to rotate between the various areas of our country. So try to do one conference in Scotland, try to do a conference in Ireland, try to do a conference in Northern England, try to do a conference in south of England, try to do a conference in Wales. So we try to do our best to give the opportunity to all our members to be able to get to a meeting that's closer to their home. So that's with regards to the logistics. With regards to the content, I think over the years, specifically my focus, I think over the last couple of years that I've been running the program has been the kind of evolving multidisciplinary approach in general surgery, the professional aspects of general surgery that some subspecialty organizations may not kind of give that much focus on, and international collaborations, like, for example, with SAGES, which has started 2 years ago and is evolving every year.
Yeah, well, the hosting of the meeting, that's done, 10 years in advance. I mean, that's done by we have a managing company that sort of takes care of all those logistics for us. But in general, as Dr. Damaskos said, we try to spread it out across the United States so that everyone has a chance to go. So, for example, a couple of years ago, we had a meeting in Montreal, then the year after that was in Cleveland in the Midwest. And this year it was in LA. Next year is going to be in Tampa. So it circulates across the United States so that all regions are being represented. And of course, it has to be in a city that has a convention center that's big enough to host our meeting, which is quite large. So that's how we decide where it's going to be. The venues are decided, years in advance. So the program chair doesn't have too much input on that. The actual content of the meeting, I think it's done in a pretty diplomatic way. All of the committee chairs are asked a year in advance to submit ideas for topics that they would like to see at the meeting. Any member of SAGES can go online and submit topics that they think would be of interest. And then the program chair basically just gets downloaded this enormous Excel file where you have to go through all of the topics that are suggested and try to decide which they think would be most relevant. One of the things that I spent a lot of time was myself and my co-chair, Dr. Ajiki, we combed through all of the comments from the participants from the previous year. For example, so one of the things that we saw for this meeting in LA was that the year before, there were a lot of comments that people thought that the content was too robotic heavy and that there didn't seem to be enough balance between, laparoscopic versus robotic. So we took that seriously, and we made sure that every single session had at least one talk that was a robot versus laparoscopic debate, so that this way that could sort of eliminate any, I guess, concerns that people thought that maybe, Intuitive, which is obviously the main robotic company in the US, was sort of, buying, our meeting. So that was something we took a lot of attention to. The president of the society, so this year it was Chris Schlachta, it's their prerogative to come up with the overall theme of the meeting, and then also pick if there's any specific topics that they would like to be highlighted. So For example, this year, something that Dr. Schlachter felt very strongly about was that we had a lot of content on AI, right? That's clearly something that everyone is very interested in. So we had many, many sessions on AI. Another thing he was very interested in was ergonomics and surgery. So we had several ergonomic sessions, not only to lectures, but also like in demonstrations on how to actually be more ergonomically, correct in the operating room. So it's a big, sort of task to go through the Excel sheet, comments from last year, take the input from the sitting president, but it's a lot of fun.
Maybe a follow-on question is, how do you decide which topics are going to be presented and the speakers that you choose? Because obviously you choose far in advance. Do you choose mostly people who are part of the society? Do you reach out to international experts who may not be part of the society? How does that work?
So, I mean, once the program chairs come up with sort of the shell of what the different sessions are going to be, that has to get approved by the executive committee. Once that's approved, then we go about assigning session chairs for each of the sessions. And we try to be very deliberate about making sure that there's gender parity. So, we don't have any what we call manels. That's like all men panels. We don't have that, right? So we try to have equal number, roughly men and women. We try to be thoughtful about including not only senior people who are experts, but some people that might be, a little bit newer in the field, international people. SAGES does have what's called a speaker bank, where anyone who's in SAGES can submit topics that they're experts in and they would like to talk about. So if we have a panel that, I might not know, like a great person to talk about, median arcuate ligament syndrome, for example. And so you could go to the speaker bank, find someone who thinks that they're an expert in mals, and if they are, great for them. But that way we can sort of make sure that we're including people. People don't want to hear someone giving a talk about something they're just reading and they don't really know anything about, right? You really want to have someone who actually is doing it in practice and does have expertise. So we're very mindful of, again, including all those individuals. The actual session chairs, then they get to pick the individual speakers, and they're also reminded that they should keep all those tenets in mind as far as gender parity, diversity of whether they're specialists, whether they're community surgeons, whether they're an international people. I mean, there's a lot of deliberate thought that goes into that.
I really like that idea of getting your members as well to submit talks and suggest themselves potentially, or suggest colleagues for speakers. I don't think that's something we've done before, but I can see Mr. Damaskos taking some notes. Mr. Damaskos, do you want to explain a little bit about how you've recruited your speakers in the past? I know you've worked very hard scrolling X or Twitter and journal.
You hit the nail on the head. So I'm essentially online at all times, looking for ideas. That have a wide network of spies that send me ideas from just after the previous meeting finishes. We already have a little folder with ideas for next year. We do it slightly differently. So actually in our meeting, the session chairs are allocated at the end, very close to the actual meeting. We have a scientific committee and we decide the various sessions and symposia, and amongst ourselves, based on feedback, based on what Dr. Lidor mentioned about, trying to have a good balance of speakers, we start creating a basic framework of the conference. We always try to give a little punchline to create a bit of the sense of what the conference is going to be about every year. So, for example, this year, because the conference is based in Edinburgh, which is the home of the oldest surgical college in the world. So we started with this punchline, embracing tradition and delivering innovation. So we have a combination of topics, some of which kind of celebrate the history and some of which are cutting edge. So we try to find the punchline. We find the symposia, and the session chairs are chosen closer to the actual event. So all the invitations and the ideas come from within the ASGBI board, the ASGBI subcommittees, and the session chairs are invited at the end.
Can I ask a little bit about sponsorship? Obviously, got to pay for the conference. You can charge registration fees, but high fees put away potential attendees. So sponsors are really important. How do you engage with industry and sponsors? And what do you need to provide in exchange for their money?
It's a very good question. I mean, as you said, it's impossible to do all these big events without help from industry. The most important thing, I think, is that there is a framework and there is a way of work that is very clear on both ends about what the agreements are on both sides of the discussion. Industry has been very supportive in all our conferences so far. We have detailed discussions with them about what kind of content they would like to showcase in our meeting. There are various levels of sponsorship, obviously, so not all the companies provide the same level of sponsorship, and according to that, they may have different type of access to the activities of the actual conference. What we have seen in the last 2 or 3 years is that, as far as our meeting goes, is that companies seem to develop a very keen interest to do two things that previously hadn't been that common. So the first thing is what we do as the trainee village, which is actually not my ideas from Kellie and from the Moynihan Academy, which is our trainee branch. So instead of having stalls and giving out leaflets, now a lot of companies decide that they want to do educational events in the exhibition area where they deliver some content which trainees can attend or consultants can attend, and they can get some accreditation or some CPD points. And the second thing that also has become common is that companies now would like to take the opportunity of the sponsorship to engage with focus groups. So have a few select people that they want to ask their opinion on certain things, and that has become part of the sponsorship. They seem to be very keen, understandably so, to engage with our patient representatives. So ASGBI has 5 patients in its committees, and some of our sponsors are very keen to try to engage with them and understand the patient experiences, the patient's opinions, the patient's main interests, the patient's focus on their safety when they're in a healthcare environment.
That's very interesting. I didn't realize that was becoming more prominent, but it makes a lot of sense. That's who we're here for. Dr. Lidor, I think I'd ask you the same question, but also how do you avoid, not just how do you choose the industry sponsors and how do they get involved, but how do you choose for them to get involved? But how do you avoid bias in a meeting where, some are paying more than others, but also, they might be saying things that the committees and the society at large don't agree with. How do you manage that?
Yeah, I mean, very similar to what Dimitrios said. I mean, we have a very sort of active committee that's involved in soliciting donations for not only educational and research support. We have many courses and so forth, like for fellows and for residents, that it's nice to have support from industry for that. But we offer the industry sponsors, we have a massive exhibit hall, right? So they are offered spaces in the exhibit hall for them to be there and to provide an opportunity for all the members to go that are attending the meeting to go through, to be able to look at and interact with all the industry sponsors. We have focus groups, like you said. We have industry sponsored luncheons where they'll be talking about something and members can go and have lunch during the meeting. And those are actually very popular. The bias, I would say our conflict of interest task force spends a lot of time looking at every single talk that's submitted. And if obviously everyone has to, disclose if they have any financial relationships up front. And if there is a talk that they cannot mitigate the conflict, we do have non-CME talks. So if there's any talk that we think could potentially be in any way viewed as biased, that will get either get eliminated completely or get put into a non-CME talk, so that, and it's very clearly labeled. There's a separate room. This is like a non-CME talk. This way you can go in, you can go listen to the talk, up front that there's some sort of a potential conflict, but it does give you an opportunity to learn about, new technology or something that you may not be able to hear of in a session if you're going to be getting CME for it.
All right. So the largest audience at these surgical conferences is, of course, surgeons that are in practice, whether that's attending surgeons in the United States or consultant surgeons in the UK. How do your respective societies keep surgeons in practice engaged and support them in their careers and promote their attendance at the meetings and active involvement in the society? Maybe we can start with Mr. Damaskos.
It's a very good question. The answer to that is we try to, as the association evolves, we have various committees, various local events where we can get our colleagues to become engaged with the society. We do have another meeting throughout the year. So obviously our main meeting is next month in May, but we also have a second meeting, which is usually run in October or November, which is our emergency surgery day. Is another opportunity for our colleagues to engage. It's a smaller event, and we give focus only on emergency surgery and no other particular kind of part of the literature. We have started doing some local educational events in smaller areas, in areas of the United Kingdom. And also what is a new idea which has just come up this year, we're trying to make this work. Some of our consultant colleagues who are now retired have reached out to say they want to engage again with our society. So we thought that we are going to create an event. They're just going to come in our meeting. We won't ask them to pay any registration, and we'll have some sort of a catch up with them, perhaps kind of a little lunch or tea or coffee event where, the younger members of the society can come and chat to them, see how the society has evolved over the years. These are people that have a huge amount of experience, and we are actually very excited that they have reached out, and we're hoping that we can make this work.
Yeah, we don't have as many sort of local SAGES events throughout the year. I think one of the main focuses of SAGES has always been education and training for residents and fellows. So we do have a number of resident and fellow events throughout the year, a bariatric course, an endoscopy course, a career development course. And these are ways that we sort of encourage younger members who are what are considered candidate members, that we hope eventually that they'll become interested in SAGES as a result of these courses and go on to become, active members within SAGES moving forward. So I think that's something that we put a lot of effort and time into. We also have a fair amount of involvement in sponsoring the actual fellowship. So the bariatric fellowship, our advanced GI, MIS, and foregut fellowship. So then these are all ways that SAGES are involved outside of the actual meeting in education and training, and hopefully in allowing younger members to feel like SAGES has helped them to get to where they are, and that will make them feel like SAGES is their home society. And I think it's worked really well.
Thank you. Yeah, I think it really shows how the surgical societies are there to create a family of surgeons, really, aren't they? Where you're being mentored throughout your career. And these are a great place to meet people at different stages. Dr. Lidor, I'm really keen to know how else you engage and support trainees within the conference. So obviously you've got your educational contracts, but I've been really fortunate to work with ASGBI the last couple of years, as we've already talked about, to build training village with skills workshops into the conference, or various poster presentations and oral prize sessions. Do you do similar to support the CV building and skill development of your trainees?
Well, yeah. So outside of those courses that I talked about, those are not necessarily tied to the actual annual meeting. But within the actual meeting, of course, we have we solicit abstract submissions, right? This year we had a record number of abstract submissions. I can't remember how many, and it actually was, but it was the highest number of abstract submissions ever in the history of SAGES. And we try to include as many of those abstracts, accept as many of them as possible. So of course, not every single abstract is going to get an oral presentation, but if it doesn't get an oral presentation, we have long presentations. We have, what's called our quick shot, which are a little bit shorter oral presentations, but then we even have video presentations and then posters. So this allows residents and trainees, fellows, to come to the meeting and be able to present their research, have, people in the audience to be able to ask questions of them, to come up to them after the poster sessions or at the video sessions. We have a poster award and a video award to the best presentation. So I think there's a lot of effort made, to include as many trainees as possible in that way.
Yeah, I think it's really valuable to sort of have that semi-constructive, semi-formal, but also friendly environment where you can sort of try and learn and build those skills. Ms. Damaskos, do you want to talk about some of our abstract submissions and stuff for trainees, including the Behind the Knife video prize that we've done this year?
Oh, you caught me to it. I was just going to mention it. So I was going to start by that and saying that we have had a lot of very beautiful videos submitted, and I think it all had to do with Behind the Knife supporting us in that regard. And I'll take the opportunity to thank Jon obviously and all the Behind the Knife team. So yes, we do have video prizes. We also have our standard prizes, which is the Moynihan Prize and the Nella Prize. We have started this year giving out the Patient Safety Prize. We have started a new category of abstracts, which has to do with patient safety, teamwork, and non-technical skills. So we are going to give out a new prize this year, and we're hoping that one of our patient representatives will hand out the prize for the best patient safety prize. We're also having a sustainability prize as well as a trauma best paper submission. We have the Trainee Village, which is small 90-minute activities throughout our exhibition, sponsored by some of the companies that support our meeting. We provide the faculty and they bring their equipment, and we design educational events that our residents can register to free of charge. After they register for the main event, they can book these activities and they can get CPD points for them. And this year we are very lucky to have 4 pre-conference courses. We have a SAGES MIS pre-conference course, for which we are very excited. We also have our laparoscopic skills and emergency surgery course, and we have 2 courses on abdominal and thoracic trauma by our great colleagues of the David Knott Foundation.
All right. Well, thank you both for all of your insights. I wonder whether you could tell us about the future of surgical conferences. What do you think are the biggest changes on the horizon going forward, both in surgical practice, but how that reflects in surgical conferences? Dr. Lidor, we'll start with you. You mentioned AI and its big role in your future conferences. Could you expand on that?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not an AI expert by any means, but I do think every day I'm hearing about more and more ways in which AI is being used in medicine and in surgery. I mean, from using AI to write your, letters of recommendation, to having an AI basically act as your scribe while you're seeing patients in clinic, so you don't have to spend hours after you're seeing patients in clinic to write your notes. I mean, at some point, it's not here yet, but it will be here, where probably with robotic surgery, AI will be able to perform, operations sort of without a surgeon at the console, right? You'll just probably need someone to be at the bedside and put the ports in, and the robot will do everything else. Obviously that's a ways down the line, but I do think there's a lot of things that I can't even conceive of that AI will be used for. So, the bottom line though is, as we've all talked about, one of the main advantages to going to these meetings is the opportunity for you to meet up with your colleagues, for you to be able to network, for you to be able to get your trainees to meet other people. And there's no substitute for going to a meeting and hanging out with your friends and talking to people that are experts and getting to network and making connections that you can, work on a research project with, or maybe looking for your next job. So that, to me, that there's no substitute for that. And I hope you never get to a place where everything is AI and you don't actually get to go to a meeting and see people and enjoy yourself too.
So from my end, I think I do agree with what Dr. Lidor said about, the opportunity to meet up with people. Certainly my journey with doing these conferences has shown me that increasingly more and more companies are interested to engage in educational activities, whereas it used to be a lot of stands and giving out leaflets and try to convince, it's part of what they need to do, convince people of the professionals of the safety and of the efficacy of their products, to actually building and showcasing and delivering content while at the same time having surgeons using their products, but also making it meaningful for them to engage and gain something out of this engagement. So there is some kind of bilaterality and where both sides gain something from it. And the other thing I would say is, what we have also seen is there are a couple of sessions that have been relatively new and are gaining a lot of traction. One of them is a session that we have on national trials. A lot of our residents need to build their portfolios for their applications, and having a participation in a multi-center audit or a multi-center trial is a very big plus for their portfolio. So we have started doing these sessions where people from around the country are invited to say, we are starting this new trial, please come in and join us. And they have become very popular. We didn't actually expect how popular they were going to be. So I think this is going to expand over the next few years as more and more studies are coming out. And I see the engagement with these types of sessions. And the second thing I was going to say, as far as our membership goes, we do see a trend of people wanting to engage to talk about the things that matter in the professional aspect of surgery. So there is a lot of content out there, a lot of webinars where people can learn about new techniques. And there are a lot of conferences, either local or national or international, for technical aspects, but there aren't a lot of places or meetings where you can actually speak about conflict resolution, ergonomics, as Dr. Lidor said, what happens if you get sued, all these things, how do you manage a difficult colleague? So all these kind of soft skills or aspects of our practice that we don't necessarily have literature on, and we may not necessarily think that they are or should be part of a conference, but we have seen people engaging a lot with these types of sessions and also given feedback. So I think the technical aspect obviously needs to be there. It's a surgical conference, but we are kind of building on the professional aspect as well.
That's great. The other thing I've noticed is where there's an increased effort on supporting a diverse workforce. And how do you incorporate that into the way you design conferences and congresses? So making them, for example, dog friendly, encouraging people to either bring their children if they can't find childcare, or even just to make them feel welcome, breastfeeding rooms, prayer rooms. Like what else? Or have you had to think of all these things and to make sure they're in place for everyone to feel welcome to come to conferences?
Yeah, we spent a lot of time on what we called our wellness aspect of our meeting this year, and it was actually really fun. I mean, yeah, we definitely offer childcare. And that's advertised, well in advance, because especially when the meeting is going to be someplace like, for example, this year at LA, where, you would think that families might want to go, as opposed to maybe some other places. I'm not going to say any names of cities so that people don't get upset. But so we definitely offered childcare. We spent a lot of time on the wellness activities. So this year, for example, we had and these are offered for everyone, not just the members, right? The members and their, whoever they're bringing, their family. So we had goat yoga, which was sold out immediately because it was immediately. As soon as it got posted, goat yoga got sold out. We had a running with the leadership session, that happened, before the meetings. That also that got sold out. We had a bourbon tasting session. We had a matcha tea session with an actual expert in that. We organized a professional, I'm trying to remember if it was a hockey game where everyone could go to that. So we put a lot of effort into those, what we called them, wellness activities, and they were all very well attended. So I think we're making it known that we want you to bring your family. We want you to enjoy yourself. We want you to come here and, obviously learn a lot and do all the stuff that's associated with the meeting, but also be able to enjoy a little bit of, of the area and hanging out with your other friends and family.
From the ASGBI point of view, I think we do our best to show that we welcome everyone. We do have similar activities. I don't think we have that many. Dr. Lidor, I think, we have to learn a lot from you. We do our best, and we do have, we do encourage people to bring their families. I should say we did have childcare rooms on our last meeting. We definitely have prayer rooms. I think a lot of these things now, I have come to realize, at least from my engagement with these activities, they come organically. So the conference centers now that we tend to work with have already thought of these things. So it's as we start our programming, the conference centers themselves say, this space is for prayer, this space is for childcare. So I think my experience has been that this has grown organically. We have had running sessions. I did not. If you expect to have a running with the leadership with me, I don't think you would get much out of it. But yes, it is a great opportunity to show that you are an inclusive society. And we have our own code of conduct for the event where we try to encourage people to ask questions, but in a way that is meaningful and not be mean to people. And this code of conduct is visible on screens throughout the conference, so to make people feel welcome.
Yeah, that I did remember. One of the big things about SAGES, for anyone who's not been to SAGES, that there's a very, at the very end of the conference, there's what we call the SAGES. It's called the Sing Off, but it's a huge venue. It's usually at a very fun place. Like this year, it was at the aquarium. The year before was at the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. So it's at a very nice and fun venue. There's always a live band. There's dancing. There's this year we had everyone who wanted to participate in it was called SAGES Got Talent. So you had to submit an audition up front of a performance. And if you got selected, we selected everyone, by the way, and they got a chance to get up and do a live performance in front of everybody. Every year we have a group from Japan that it's been going on since SAGES has been in around. There's a group from Japan that comes in and they do this huge group sing. It's called We Are the World, but they sing it, We Are the World, We Are SAGES. And it's like a huge thing and everyone's hugging each other and they're like flashing their lights. So it's a really, everyone who comes to SAGES for the first time and goes to the sing off, they're like, wow, it's just so much fun. I think that's one of the unique things about SAGES.
Well, I do have the fondest memories from the combined ASGBI SAGES karaoke nights in Belfast last year. Just to say, for people that are coming to our meeting next month, we'll have a gala dinner and we'll have a Scottish Kellie dancing for those interested.
Sounds pretty awesome. All right. So that wraps up our deep dive into surgical conferences and all that goes into making these meetings such an awesome experience for those that attend. Thank you, Dr. Lidor, and thanks, Mr. Damaskos, for both of your insights and for your leadership in organizing these great conferences for these great organizations. I certainly am even more excited to attend both the ASGBI and the SAGES meetings in the near future. So thanks again for taking the time. More Behind the Knife and ASGBI collaborative content is on the way. So as always, if you have any thoughts, questions, or comments, please feel free to reach out to us at hello@behindtheknife.org. Mr. Damaskos, do you care to do the honors to send us off?
As always, dominate the day.
Be sure to check out our website at www.behindtheknife.org. Download our free app available for Apple, iOS, and Android. Simply search for Behind the Knife in the App Store or Google Play to download the app. In the app, you can listen to our episodes, watch high-yield videos, and even access our premium content, including our oral board reviews and trauma video atlas. You can also follow us on Twitter at Behind the Knife and on Instagram at Behind the Knife Podcast. If you like what you hear, please be sure to leave us a review. Content produced by Behind the Knife is intended for health professionals and is for educational purposes only. We do not diagnose, treat, or offer patient-specific advice. Thank you for listening. We appreciate your support.
Until next time, dominate the day.